Motorcycle. I still cannot believe we are in a world where we know the release date for Metroid Prime 4 Beyond. The thing we've been waiting for 8 years since the announcement. Well, actually, we've been waiting for the game for 8 years, but the release date is the second best thing. That being December 4th, 2025. And I'm so glad it's still making it to 2025. It's not getting delayed, but man, they really waited until the last possible minute of 2025 to give us this game, let me tell you. But besides the release date, we also got some new footage, and I mean brand new footage of stuff we have just never seen before, aside from Samus's new suit. I was expecting more of the jungle footage from Vuros, which I think we're still on the planet Vuros, but we've only seen like the jungle on this planet. It looks really good, but instead we get a brand new area, some also mini areas that look like some kind of a factory, but most importantly, Samus has a motorcycle now. Is it still called a motorcycle if it doesn't run on oil? I'm not sure. It's like a tech cycle, like the ones from Tron. My buddy Kyle's like the biggest Tron fan, and I thought, hey, Tron fans and Metroid fans are going to be really happy this year. I would not have guessed in a million years that Samus was going to get a motorcycle in Metroid Prime 4 Beyond, let alone doing the Akira slide to take down opponents. That is just sick. At this point, the person who invented the Akira slide must be just raking in the dough with royalties. I don't think the Akira slide's patented, but if it was, that's a very rich person right there. So I'm going to go over all my opinions on that, my opinions on the release date, basically just a whole bunch of opinions here. Some of them good, most of them good, I should say. Some of them not as good, but my overall feelings on the matter are, thank God I know when this game is coming out in just over 80 days. And when you put it that way, it doesn't feel that far away. It's not even 3 months to go until we get Metroid Prime 4 in our grubby little hands. And just knowing it, I have some issues with the release date that I'll talk about later, but overall I feel like a great heavy burden has been lifted from my shoulders knowing when I'm going to be able to get this game. A lot of people told me to be patient, and it's just like, look, I can handle waiting. What I can't handle is waiting and not knowing when the waiting will be done. Like, it was just so frustrating not knowing when this game was coming out for months on end, and now we're finally here, and it's just almost nothing but good vibes all around. I did go on Twitter asking people what specific topics about the Metroid Prime 4 trailer they wanted me to discuss, and I gotta first start with young boy Gore here, my buddy, saying, discuss what kind of tires Samus is using for the Samus cycle. That's not what it's called. Are they Bridgestone, Goodyear? Well, I think the answer is Lightyear. You know, the tires from Cars, they're totally not parodies of Goodyear. Like, they literally run on pure light from outer space, you know, speed of light. Hello. But I think this is a good segue to talk about the bike itself, which is called Viola, with like 2 hyphens in the middle there, and I'm not sure what exactly it stands for. Maybe something like violet, because, you know, the lighting on it, I'm pretty sure is violet, some shade of purple. And we had a character in Bayonetta 3, which was a highly anticipated game named Viola as well. I haven't seen these two in the same room together, just saying. But seeing this gameplay of the Viola cycle working, it really doesn't look like a Metroid Prime game, does it? It looks like something made by Platinum Games, which, hey, Bayonetta 3 was made by Platinum Games. I think that's the furthest comparison we're going to get when comparing Metroid Prime 4 to Bayonetta 3. Anyway, it looks so fast-paced because the bike is literally fast, but also the combat is super quick, super stylish. Samus can shoot enemies from it, and once again, the Akira slide is not just cool and stylish, but it's also an attack in and of itself. Just super cool moves all around, and this actually brings me to a question from Jimmy T2D asking, do you think we can leave the bike whenever we want, like in the desert area and walk around, or are those areas only to explore on the bike? Well, I think that you can leave this bike anytime you want, because when we look at the desert overworld, there are some structures very spread out, and I feel like you can go to those structures and get off and explore those areas to see what you can find. That's my gut instinct, and I think later on when we see the ice wolves in a blizzard, that's also an area we'll be able to explore with the bicycle. I say bicycle. It's called Viola. Gotta get used to calling it Viola, or at least the cycle. So I do think that if you are a very, very, very patient gamer, you can just walk around those big open areas, although it wouldn't be so convenient. And I think this is a great segue into the issues people have with this cycle and the open world, I say with quotes, itself, because this game is not open world. I really don't think the entirety of this game is open world, because if you remember the first 2 trailers we got for this game, they were set in confined spaces. Even the Switch 2 Experience demo, which takes place at the very beginning, that's all linear, and it really feels like people just have short attention spans, because if they remembered all that stuff, they wouldn't be questioning what kind of a game Metroid Prime 4 Beyond is. It's not open world. I know that's not confirmed, but I just know for a fact this is not an open world game. There are open segments to explore with the cycle or on foot if you're very patient, which you just, I don't know why you would do that. Like, life is already busy enough. Like, just explore with that bicycle. It's so cool. Why do I keep calling it a bicycle? Yeah, I feel like this open area, or maybe if there are multiple open areas, they will just serve as like parts of the map. Like, they're not exactly the entire map. If anything, this desert is probably the equivalent of the Talon overworld from Metroid Prime, the Temple Grounds from Prime 2, and outer space from Metroid Prime 3. It's going to be the interconnecting hub that connects all the other areas you're going to explore, especially when we see later on in the trailer Samus gets off the bicycle. Samus gets off the cycle into a factory of sorts with some gorgeous looking lava. People think this game is ugly. Like, what are they smoking? We also see a different area in the snow, which once again looks very corridor-y, so it just goes to show that this is still the Metroid Prime we know and love, with some motorcycle segments. Once again, I think the Viola cycle looks very cool. It is a welcome change into the Metroid Prime series, especially if it controls really well, which with Retro Studios and how long they've been working on this game, I have a feeling they figured out how to properly do motorcycle controls in like a big open desert. And I find it so interesting that people are complaining about this, because I gotta think these are the same people who have been complaining for over a year now that Metroid Prime 4 just looks like more of the same, or whatever. That's all I've been hearing the complaints about. It's just more Metroid Prime. It just looks the same as 1, 2, and 3. And I'm like, yeah, it's Metroid Prime 4. It's the 4th Metroid Prime game. But of course there were going to be differences. And here we go. Here's a big difference. There is a vehicle that Samus can drive through big open zones. And now you're complaining about it? Like, give me a break. And another thing people complain about is how empty this desert area looks. And once again, this goes back to what I'm saying, that this is not the entirety of the game. This desert map is not going to be what the entire game is filled with. I really feel like this is just an open section of it that has some story elements in there, maybe, and or additional exploration areas that are found in like those buildings and such. And also, obviously, it's going to be empty. It's a desert. Have you been to a desert? There's not exactly a whole lot to do in a desert except die of thirst. It just boggles my mind, the complaints these people have. I'm just like, ugh. And I think this is the last time I'll address some complaints, and I'll just get into stuff I really like about it. For one, the graphics. People have just always complained about the graphics for some reason, forgetting that this game was primarily developed for the Nintendo Switch 1, a tablet that was powerfully outdated since 2017. But even still, Retro Studios are wizards, and they made the best looking remaster of all time on the Nintendo Switch 1 in the form of Metroid Prime Remastered. I get it, the game could look better in some spots. Some of the textures in this trailer look muddy, and it's running on Switch 2, but it's just like Retro had to work with what they got. They had to make sure first and foremost that the game ran best on Nintendo Switch 1, so obviously they had to scale some things back, like map and gameplay wise. Even still, that area looks huge. So if this game still runs really well on Nintendo Switch 1, that's already a miracle in and of itself. And I was told by Tim Rose and Tim Despair Bear, I don't know if they're the same person, I was told by them to talk about the flame beam, to which I'm like, what are you talking about? I didn't see any flame beam. And then I saw, on the bottom left side of the HUD, a little flame icon. This has to confirm that the plasma beam is coming back, right? It's probably not going to be called the flame beam, it's going to be called the plasma beam, like in Metroid Prime 1 and 3. So this has to be be just an outright confirmation of it. But I'm more curious about the bottom right-hand side of the screen, which shows another icon next to the missile ammo icon. Is beam ammo coming back, or is that for another missile, like the ice missile maybe? Like the whiteness makes me think it is an ice missile. But speaking of Samus's tools, the grapple lasso is back, which naturally should mean the grapple beam is back, but I think we all expected it to return here. It's shown using the left stick to pull back on things instead of the motion controls. I don't think this game is going to have motion controls. I think that's been confirmed already. And now that I'm looking at it again while editing this video, it looks like it's a psychic ability now. It's not exactly a piece of tech attached to her suit. That ultraviolet lighting makes me think that it is indeed a psychic ability, so it makes me wonder what other powers will be psychic abilities, stuff we've either seen before or haven't seen before. I also got a question from my good friend Levi asking, can Metroid crawl? Levi, we've been over this. He's a robot. He can't crawl. He turns into a ball. Come on! And oh, look at that. Silex is back for a second. I think he's rocking a new suit from the last time we saw him. Cool stuff. We didn't get to see much of him once again. There's still the question on if he's the main antagonist or if he's more of a side antagonist like Dark Samus was in Metroid Prime 2. Overall, pretty good trailer. Ends with the release date of December 4th. Let's talk about the quality of this trailer here. I want to say that this really feels like a trailer and not something that's like a brief gameplay demonstration or like just a guy talking to you, narrating, saying stuff, opening doors with psychic abilities. No, none of that. This feels like a proper trailer with some music in the background that's just rocking. There's a lot of rock music, not only in this trailer, but in the first trailer that we saw from 2024. It makes me wonder if Kenji Yamamoto is not coming back to return to this game, because there are some aspects about the soundtrack that very much sound like his style, but also not so much. I know he's not allergic to using guitars, but it feels like there's a lot more that I would expect from him. I don't know, maybe his style has changed since it's been, what, 18 years since Metroid Prime 3 came out? Yeah, we've been waiting a long time for this game. But yes, it's a proper trailer this time, although I feel like after 8 years of waiting, we still haven't gotten like the trailer that with the hook that really gets people, not just Metroid fans, but non-Metroid fans, to want to check out this highly anticipated game when it releases this December. I just feel like Nintendo doesn't understand how excited people are for this game. And you know, not only did this game take 8 years to make, like the first 2 years of it probably were just completely scrapped in favor of going to Retro Studios, the original developers of the Metroid Prime trilogy. Gee, why didn't they do that the first time? So I would think they'd want this game to do the best as possible, and the marketing for it, it just doesn't feel yet like this is a high-profile game. Even its placement in the Direct doesn't feel like it's as important as Nintendo wants it to be. Like, it just started with a fade to black, Koizumi didn't even introduce it, and then when the trailer ended, nobody talked about it. Instead, we moved on to overpriced Donkey Kong Bonanza DLC. I definitely think we're going to see more of this game within the next 2.5 months, because you just kind of have to leading up to release. Whether this be in a Metroid Prime 4 focused Nintendo Direct, which has been the case for almost every major Nintendo Switch 2 release this year, or I will also be satisfied with an overview trailer that's about 5 minutes long, because with Metroid you really don't want to spoil too much, because exploration is part of what makes Metroid special. If you show too much of it, then the secrets are just ruined for everyone. Metroid Dread especially was dangerously close with showing people too much. I remember one of the Dread reports just talked about every location on the planet ZDR, and I just straight up said, I'm not reading that. But in the end, like, I think they left out 2 locations, maybe 1 only. I don't want the advertising to be overblown, although maybe it should be a little overblown, because Metroid Dread wound up being the best-selling Metroid game of all time, and that marketing campaign was way better than Metroid Prime 4's is currently. They still have time to turn around. I expect we'll get that Direct or that overview trailer about a month before the game officially comes out. And another thing that they need to do to ensure this game's success is release the dang Metroid Prime 2 and 3 HD versions. I don't know if these exist. There have been rumors that they exist, and it just doesn't make sense to me to release Metroid Prime Remastered and then just say, all right, well, you can't play 2 and 3, but you can go straight to 4. Like, come on, Prime Remastered ends on a cliffhanger, and a lot of people want to know where that cliffhanger leads. And chances are they don't have a GameCube or a Wii U/Wii U to play Metroid Prime 2 and 3. So just release those games on Switch. A lot of people might think I'm just huffing copium, thinking that those could still be released at this point. Well, Pikmin 1 and 2 HD came out, I think, less than a month before Pikmin 4 came out, and then Pikmin 4 wound up being the best-selling game in its respective series. So I would hope that Nintendo follows suit and like sees a pattern and like does the thing that will ensure the best sales. But now we need to talk about the release date itself. I already talked about this in my last video discussing the game's release date, and I was worried that December 4th would be the release date for it. At that point, I just kind of expected it because I expect my dreams to not come true at this point, and I was a little bit salty because Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment got a November 6th 2025 release date, which is when I wanted Metroid Prime 4 to release, and I was certain that Hyrule Warriors was going to be pushed to early next year because the date was this winter, but nope, they just said here it is, it's November 6th. And the fact that that amiibo is coming out on November 6th is a little sus to me. I want to say that Nintendo did plan on releasing this game sooner than December 4th, but for whatever reason, maybe development issues or what have you, the game just needed a little more time to cook. They decided to swap the release dates of Hyrule Warriors and Metroid Prime 4. This was brought up to me by Platinum Declan. They also think the same thing, and I'm also inclined to think it. We'll never know for sure, but what matters is that Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisoment's coming out on the 6th in that November slot, right between Pokemon Legends ZA and Kirby Air Riders, which makes Metroid Prime 4 the swan song for 2025 in Nintendo, and possibly gaming as a whole. Are there any other games coming out in December? I'm not sure. Maybe the fact that it's the only December game, the new December game, will do it some favors. But the thing is, December release dates, they're not the best statistically for sales, I feel like. I didn't do any hard research into this, so forgive me if I just sound like an ignorant slut, but the Metroid series is not historically known for its great sales. It doesn't have many great sales. Metroid Dread was the best-selling one, and it only sold 3 million units, which is not a bad number when you compare it to Nintendo's other franchises. It's just kind of like, not that great. So releasing it in December, after Black Friday, when people do most of their holiday shopping, just kind of sets it up for, I don't want to say failure, just not the best sales, I feel like. And I know a lot of people get annoyed when I bring this up, but the Game Awards, it's gonna miss the Game Award nominations. And I know it doesn't need those nominations per se, and people tell me that all the time, but I know those people didn't say anything when Metroid Dread got nominated for Best Action Adventure and Game of the Year. And then we got to see that sweet musical segment where they played songs from all the Game of the Year nominees. I just want Metroid Prime 4 to have that spotlight, man. Look, you can argue the validity of the Game Awards all you want, but the truth is, millions and millions of people watch this show every single year, and I feel like the number just gets higher and higher. And in this hypothetical scenario, all those people would have seen Metroid Prime 4 as a Game of the Year nominee if it would have made it to those nominations, and they would have thought, that seems interesting, I'll have to check it out. It's just all potential advertising right here. I know some of you might be asking, why do you care so much about sales? I'm just a consumer. I have no skin in the game, per se. Well, actually, I do, because I love Metroid. I want Nintendo to make more Metroid games, but they're only going to make more Metroid games if those things actually sell. Do you understand what I'm talking about here? On one hand, though, and I'm grateful for this, Nintendo is not your typical gaming company. They tend to just do what they want or do what their higher-ups want, regardless of if it makes financial sense, at least to us. Maybe it does make financial sense to them, but, you know, they made a new Famicom Detective Club game, which has not seen a new entry in like, what, 30 years or something? I need to look into that, but it's been a long stinking time. And my buddy Kiwi Talks actually interviewed Metroid Prime 2 and 3's producer Brian Walker, and he said that Nintendo makes these Metroid games mainly to have a spot in like the sci-fi genre. Regardless of how well that series does, it's just good to have something in the science fiction genre. I'm paraphrasing here. If you want to check out the full clip, there it is. So hearing that kind of gave me some comfort in knowing maybe Metroid is going to be just fine after all this. And I know after the success of Dread, they're on their way to make Metroid 6. Like, that's just guaranteed at this point, but still, I want other people to feel like just as excited as me. And right now it feels like Metroid Prime 4 is kind of being slept on. It's not being discussed enough in the zeitgeist of gaming in the year 2025. Part of that is due to the advertising, which could be just way better. I really hope they give us like a really good direct or a really good trailer before the game comes out. And I know haters are gonna hate sometimes, regardless of how good a trailer looks. There's just some people who are just gonna think Metroid is bad for whatever reason, and they're never gonna give it a chance. But the way some people are doubting the abilities of Retro Studios to deliver an amazing experience, have they not seen the Metacritic scores of the Metroid Prime games? None of them go below 90. That's crazy. I just found that out. I could have sworn Prime 3 was in like the high 80s, but no, it's still at a 90. The worst Metroid Prime game is not even close to being bad. It's not even mediocre. It's still very good. I know for a fact that when this game comes out on December 4th, like right before the Game Awards, people are going to once again start talking again about why that show needs to be pushed to January. People are going to see the Metacritic scores of this game and think, oh, this Retro Studios actually cooked. And if the advertising for this game by Nintendo continues to be lackluster, people might just think, wow, Nintendo really did this game dirty. And that's what I'm afraid of. I'm afraid that Nintendo is doing this game dirty if they're almost sending it out to die. I know that's a very over-dramatic statement, and that's probably not what's happening, but it really feels like Nintendo hasn't been putting their all into marketing this game to be as appealing as it possibly could, which baffles me because they scrapped however many years of development with the last studio and then had Retro Studios take over, so it's clear they care about getting this right. But in order to get things right, Nintendo, you also have to make sure people buy your game. I know I don't have to explain that to them because they're much smarter about marketing than I am, but now that I think about it, maybe the cycle was advertising in and of itself. Have you seen how many people are posting about this cycle, good and bad? I guess Nintendo is just making sure we're the ones advertising the game. They're geniuses. Like, wow. And this might be true because I found out in the middle of editing this video that Metroid Prime 4, the Switch 2 edition, is currently Amazon's best-selling Switch 2 game, which means that a lot of people pre-ordered this game. I couldn't be happier hearing this. Very same thing happened to Metroid Dread, I believe, and that wound up being the best-selling Metroid game of all time. So the hype is definitely there, even if it is mostly by word of mouth. I don't know for sure, but people are really excited for this game, and I'm very much looking forward to seeing how these final sales turn out. But I think that's all I have to say about Metroid Prime 4 Beyond right now. We are just 80-something days away from finally having it in our hands, and I'm just, once again, despite some of my qualms with the date itself, like the positioning of the game's release, I am still just ultimately relieved that I know when I'll finally be able to buy this game. I know when it's coming out. Like, this has been such an excruciatingly long journey. It could have been way worse. We could not have had Metroid Dread. We could not have had Prime Remastered to hold us over, but like, I still had my sights on Prime 4. That was the end-all be-all for me in my gaming life, and I know after I play this game, after I beat it, after I make whatever content I'm gonna make about it, I know that my whole gaming life is going to change from there. It's gonna have a dramatic shift in some way. Like, even if there's gonna be more Metroid games in the future, like Metroid 6 or Prime 5 in the next few decades maybe, I still don't think they will match the hype I felt for Metroid Prime 4 Beyond. Like, I'll still be excited for those other games, sure, but I don't think I'll be as obsessed about them, you know? So, thank you so much for watching my little ramble on Metroid Prime 4 Beyond. Let me know in the comments how excited you are for this game, and hey, if you want more Metroid content, like up until the game comes out, be sure to hit that subscribe button and notification bell, and that like button. I don't usually do those call to subscribe actions, but I feel like doing it here. I can't really explain it. I guess I just want people to be as excited for Metroid as I am. But thanks for watching, and I have to thank my beautiful Ferris Wheel members here for supporting me and my channel. If you want to become a member to get early access to some of my videos, well, then hit that join button down below. But until next time, bye-bye.